Hi everyone, my name is Neve and you're very welcome to the third and final Minecraft Education Edition webinar. Joining me today is Kaylin.
Hi everyone.
And we also have Richard, Amanda and Corey online to answer any questions you may have. So please feel free to pop a question into the Q&A section if you get stuck at any stage. Something else I want to mention is that you can pop this webinar and pause at any stage. So if you're struggling to find a block, just pop the webinar and pause and give yourself some more time. Okie doke. So first off, what did we cover in last week's webinar? So the first thing we covered last week was how to spawn. And what exactly is spawning? Well, spawning is when an entity, so a player or a mob, appears in our Minecraft world. The next thing we covered last week was our 3D coordinates, and we're actually going to be building on our knowledge of our 3D coordinates from last week this week. So our 3D coordinates are on the Minecraft map are divided into X, Y, and Z. And each of the X, Y, and Z values indicate a position on the map. So we'll be building upon that knowledge today. And the final thing we covered last week was what a nested loop is. So if we look over here, we see there's two different loops. On the right-hand side of the screen, there's a repeat 10 times, and then inside of that loop, there's a repeat 4 times. So the nested loop is when a loop exists inside of another loop. So the nested loop here would be the repeat 4 times loop because it exists inside of the repeat 10 times loop. Okay, so we're going to be learning lots of new coding concepts today. But what do we need to do in order to take part? Well, if you've got an Office 365 education account, you can go to Minecraft Education Edition and wait for Kaylin to take over and she will take you through that version. However, if you don't have an Office 365 education account, you can also take part using our pseudocode or using the code builder. So I'm going to demonstrate how we get to there. Okay, so don't worry if you haven't taken part in our previous Minecraft webinars. I'm going to show you where they are also. So we need to go to aka.ms/DSHomeSpace. And when that opens up, if you haven't previously joined in on any of our webinars, I would suggest going to our YouTube playlist by clicking on this link here in the on-demand HomeSpace lessons section and watching our webinar 1 and 2 for Minecraft Education Edition before today's webinar, because each week we're building on the coding concepts and on the knowledge. So you will require the knowledge from webinar 1 and 2 in order to take part in this webinar. So I would advise, if you haven't taken part so far, I would go back and watch them first. For anyone who has taken part already and wants to use the pseudocode or the code builder version, you go down to the HomeSpace wakelet and you click on View All Resources here. Okay, and this page takes a little bit of time to load, so I have it already open here. Okay, so this is what the wakelet looks like. So it will take a minute or two to open up, but don't worry, it will open up for you. Just to save time, I have it already opened. So then we go down to the Coding with Minecraft Education Edition. So if you want to use the unplugged version, which is the pseudocode version, you have to click into this link here and download, print, and cut out the different blocks. And then you can use the pseudocode version. Okay? However, if you would like to use the code builder, you have to go down here to Minecraft, down a little bit further, to the Minecraft end of week code, okay? And we need to download and save last week's code onto our desktop because we need to import this into our code builder because we will be building on last week's code, so we will need last week's code. Okay, so you need to download and save this onto your desktop and then import it into the code builder. And I'm going to demonstrate how we import it into the code builder because I have it already saved on my desktop. So if we're wanting to use the code builder version, we go to minecraft.makecode.com. And that will open the home page of the code builder, and over to the right hand side you will see a button which says import on it. So we're going to click on that button, and then we're going to click on import file because we want to import our code from last week. Then we're going to click on browse, and at this point you're going to have to find wherever you saved the code from last week or wherever you downloaded and saved it. Okay, so I'm going to click on the code and click open. And then once the code appears there, you can click go ahead and it will open up in your code builder. So this is what we covered last week. Okay, and Kaylin is going to build upon that knowledge today. So I'm going to pass you over to Kaylin and she is going to get started.
Okay, thanks, Niamh. So once you have opened up Minecraft and logged into your Office 365 education account, we're going to do the same that we have done every week. We're going to hit play, view my worlds, and go into the world that you've created for the webinars. So mine's called HomeSpace. I'm going to click in there and load up my world. So same as every week, remember to read the little prompts that come up there, the little tips and tricks that come up to help you with your code and your build. Okay, so here we have our farm from last week, and you can see that I actually went and added more animals and more fenced in areas to our farm. I have some sheep, some horses, some cows, and we still have our chickens over there. So hopefully you got time to do that as well at home and you were able to build out your farm from last week. So also remember that if you don't remember how to navigate in Minecraft, or if you just need a little bit of a reminder, that's okay. All the instructions are to the left-hand side of my screen. So that'll just help you move around Minecraft if you need a little bit of a reminder. So I'm going to click on C to get into my code builder. So we can look at our code from last week. There's a little agent. And I've already imported my code like Niamh showed you earlier on. So I just have to click on Webinar 2 and that'll open up my code. So now we can see all of the code that we had from last week. We have the code that made us spawn our chickens. We have the code that helped us build our house. And of course, we have our teleport to player code, which is always extremely important. So today we are going to be doing two different things. Because today is the last episode of Minecraft, we're going to be introducing some more complicated coding concepts. So that means that if you need to pause and catch up, take as much time as you need to get the code right, and then just play the webinar back and you'll be able to continue along with us. So as I said, we're cutting it into two different sections. Section 1 is going to be recreating a story, a famous story that we will all know. And then the second section is going to be adding some more features to our world. So adding some new cool features to our world by using our code. Okay, so starting off on the first part, we're recreating a story. Today, we're going to be doing the story of the Three Little Pigs. So we can see that we have a code here for building a house. And in the story of the Three Little Pigs, we have our wolf, our three pigs, and we have our three houses. Okay, so we can see how we're going to use our code to recreate this story. Let's get started. I'm going to click on this button up in the top left-hand corner to make my code builder full screen, just to give me more space, because there's going to be a lot of code here. So I'm going to bring out this block that we used last week to build our house and go through it and see what do we need to do to this code to help it to build our three houses. Okay, so we have our agent place on move, perfect. Agent destroy obstacles, okay. Agent set active slot, so we're going to have to change the materials and the numbers, but we can do that in a second. And then we have our repeat block. Okay, so I want to build 3 houses. So I'm going to need this code inside the nested loops 3 times. Also, the houses aren't all made of the same materials. We want them to be made of different things. So I'm going to need this block as well. So instead of going in and finding those blocks again, I can just right-click on them and duplicate. I'm going to add that one in there, then duplicate my nested loops, bring it down the bottom. I'm going to just zoom out so that I have more space for my code. Okay. I'm going to duplicate that slot again for the 3rd house, and then duplicate those nested loops to build our next one. Okay, right. So now going through our code, we have told our agent to place on, move, destroy obstacles. We know they're good. And we have the active slots. Okay, so let's go and do that next. We need to go and give our agent the materials that they need. So for the story of the 3 little pigs, Niamh, what materials are the houses made from?
Oh, this was one of my favorite stories when I was growing up. So the first pig built his house with straw. The second pig built his house of wood, and the third and final pig built his house of bricks.
Okay, brilliant. So I'm going to click in to my inventory now, and I'm going to look for those materials. Okay, so I'm going to look up straw. Okay, I don't see anything, but I'm going to use my problem-solving skills to see if there's an alternative. I'll look up hay. Okay, and we can see that there's some hay here, so that'll work for our build. Now I'm going to look up some logs of wood for our wood house. And bricks was the last one, so brick. Perfect. So now we have the materials. We're going to do what we have done every week. T to talk. Get our agent to come over beside us. Okay, right click on their face and give them the materials. So we're giving them the hay in slot 1, 2, 3, 4. The wood is going into 5 and the brick is going into 6. Okay, so we have 4, 5, and 6. Now we need to go back into our code builder and change these numbers to 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so we have already created a lot of code here. We already have a lot of code. So pause now and you can catch up, just get this code done, and then we can move on. So what I did was I brought in the code to create 3 different houses, and then I gave my agent the materials to do so. But my code's not ready yet. Niamh, what do I need to do to this code, or what will happen if I just ran this code right now?
Well, if you just ran this code now, it looks like the program would build all of the houses on top of each other. And that's not what we want, is it? So I maybe would suggest telling our program where we would like to build our houses, what location.
Okay, brilliant point. So we have our agent building these houses for us. So we need to tell our agent where to go before they start building. So talking to our agent. So let's go to the agent section and have a look and see if we can find a block. So pause at home, try and find this block and bring it out and put it where you think it should sit in that code. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down and I see that there's one here that teleports our agent to. So I'm going to bring that block out and I'm going to tell my agent to teleport right before they start building. Okay, so let's have a look at this block. So agent teleport to, and we see something that we were introduced to last week. We see a coordinates block here. So Niamh, can you give us a quick refresher on what the coordinates blocks are and the different types of them that exist in Minecraft?
Yes, I can indeed. Okie doke. So last week, Amanda covered what 3D coordinates were. And we have two types of 3D coordinates in Minecraft. So the first type we have is absolute coordinates. And our absolute coordinates refer to our world. Okay, so when we're thinking of the three little pigs, we're going to build three separate houses for each little pig. And when we build those houses, they will use the absolute coordinates because that house will never move. Although the little pigs can go off fishing or go into the town or maybe go to the cinema, they will always need to go back to their absolute coordinates to where they built that house in order to get back to their house because the house will never move. Whereas there are relative coordinates also in Minecraft, and our relative coordinates relate to our player. So they relate to our player, and our player can move around the world. So our player can move different places. So the relative coordinates will move with our player. So the difference between the two coordinates, well, or how we can see the difference between the two coordinates is our absolute coordinates will have world before the coordinates, and they are usually found on the left-hand corner of our Minecraft Education Edition. Our relative coordinates, we can notice if it's a relative coordinate because it will have a tilde symbol. So the tilde symbol is just this little squiggly line here, and that's how we know if it's a relative coordinate.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Niamh. So, just like Niamh said there, we want to place our pigs' houses somewhere in the world. We want to place the houses there. No matter where we are, we want our agent to build those houses in a specific place in the world. So, we're going to look for a block, the block that Niamh just showed you, that'll get our agent to place them in the world. So I want you to pause and try and find that block. But remember, back to the very first episode when I said the brilliant thing about block coding is that they're all lovely and color coded. So if you can't find it, look at the color of this block here and it'll give you a hint as to where it is. Okay, so I can see that it's a nice greeny blue color. And I can look over here and see that the positions section looks like it's the right color. And that makes sense as well because we're looking for the coordinates, which speaks about the positions in the world or of our player. Okay, so now we can see that block, the world block that Niamh mentioned, and place it in there. So the next thing we have to do is we have to collect our coordinates. So we're going to click out of our code builder. Okay, and we have to go and just like Niamh said, look up in the top left-hand corner of your screen and you will see the coordinates. If you can't see the coordinates in the top left-hand screen, you can just go into your settings in Minecraft and make sure that you turn them on when you are creating your world or in your world settings. So you can go back to the very first episode and we showed you how to do that. So if you can't see them, don't worry, just go back and watch that part of the first episode and you'll have them up there in the top left-hand corner. Okay, so I'm going to build, here seems like a good location right in front of our house, in front of our farm. And I'm going to build, I think I'm going to build them, I'd say here, okay? If I go this way, okay. So, Niamh, what do you notice about the coordinates there?
Well, I can see that the very last coordinate is moving up and down as you move forward and backwards there. So it's moving from 7, 8, 9, 10. But the other two coordinates don't seem to be moving.
Okay, so really good point. That means that we are just moving along one axis. And that means that remembering our coordinates to put them into our code are going to be a little bit easier. Because remember, last week when we were building our fence, we had to count out the blocks on the ground, whereas we don't have to do that now. Okay, so let's go into our code and think about this. We're going to place our first house in those coordinates. So I wrote them down here and I'm going to just fill them in. It was -48, 4, and 10. Okay, and it was the last number that was changing. So each house is 5 blocks wide. And I want to leave about 5 blocks in between each house as well, so that they're not right on top of each other. So all I need to do from the rest of my coordinates is add 10 on to that last number. Okay, so no matter where, if you're building in your world, whichever number was changing there, just add 10 to it and you'll be able to build your houses in a nice, neat line. Okay, so I'm going to right click on this block, hit duplicate. Okay, and I got 2 blocks there, so I can bring one of them out and place them right before that loop there. Perfect, and now I can scroll down and I can add in the next one down here at the bottom as well. Okay, so now I'm going to change this last number, like I said. So 10 plus 10 is 20. And then 20 plus 10 is 30. Okay, so nice, easy numbers for us there. Okay, so I want you to pause the webinar now and get caught up, collect your coordinates, add in the blocks before we get building. Okay, so let's test out our code now. Going to click play. Okay, and now I'm going to do what I've always done when testing out my code, fly up into the sky, C to talk, and type in my chat command, which was build. Actually, Corey, could you show them to us?
So we have our agent building here. So let's just see if we can get them to continue. Aha.
Okay, so we can see our agent has started building out our straw house for us there. Okay, and we're going to remember back to what we did last week when our house was building. Okay, so when your house is building, go into your inventory and have a look and see if you can find any nice doors for you. Okay, so pick out whichever door you want, add them to your inventory, and then look for some glass to add in some windows to your house as well. Okay, then all you have to do is go over, pick a place on your house, and build out your door. Okay, we're just going to knock out 2 blocks here and place our door in. Then we're going to knock out a place for our window and add in some glass. Perfect. Add in glass in all of those spaces. And now we're going to name, okay? We need to remember to tell everybody who's living in this house. So I'm going to add a sign to this door as well, and I'm going to call it the straw house and say who lives in it. So we have our pig 1 living in it. Okay, so now we need to go and add our door to our second house. Okay, knock out the windows. Add in the glass. Perfect. Okay, and now we're just going to add in the sign saying wood house, and our pig 2 is going to live in this house. Okay, so now we just need to wait for our last house to build. So this is our brick house. Add in our door. And just get ready to add in our windows. Okay, so now that we've done that, what is the next thing that we need to do? Okay, so we need to get some animals inside our house. So we need to spawn some animals in our house. So we're going to get a new chat command and get some pigs and some wolves in our world. Okay, so I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to spawn some pigs in our world. Perfect. There we have a lovely pig in our world. Okay. We have a pig in our house too. Perfect. And now we have a pig in our house 3. Okay, make sure that you close the doors behind your pigs as well so that they don't escape. Now I need to spawn my wolf outside our house. And we have our lovely story of the 3 little pigs. But I want to tell the story, okay? So I'm going to look for a book. And I'm going to try and write the story of the 3 little pigs. So I'm going to type out the story now. So once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs. They all lived in different houses. One lived in a house made of straw, one lived in a house made of wood, and one lived in a house made of bricks. However, there also lived a wolf. Okay, and I'm going to let you tell the story of the big bad wolf. Okay. Now, the brilliant thing about this book is that when you hit sign and close, that book is then saved for you, okay? And you can export it just like I showed there. You can export it, and that means that you can actually download it onto your computer, and later on, you'll be able to print out that book and send a copy to someone, and you'll be able to tell the story of the 3 little pigs. Okay, so that was part 1 of our webinar. Now we're going to move on to the second part. So remember, for the second part, I said that we wanted to add something to our world. We wanted to add some cool features to our world. So let's think about what features can we add. How about we add in some weather, okay? So you can keep your code that's there, but I'm just going to keep my on-chat command block for now. And I need to bring out another one for my weather. Okay, so we don't know when it's going to rain. We don't know when it's going to be sunny or if there's going to be a thunderstorm. It's always a bit random, okay? So we need to find a way that will get our code to work around the weather or recreate the weather. Okay, so let's think about this. First thing is, let's actually look for a block that will control the weather. So I can actually search up here, and I'm going to look for weather. Okay, that block looks perfect, that top one there. On weather, and there's 1, 2, 3 options, okay. But if I do that chat command, it's just going to do that one option, whereas I want it to change. I want it to choose randomly. So because it's going to be changing, I'm going to create my own variable. So this is a new coding concept that we're introducing today, is that we're going to be making our own variable, and that is something that can change. So I'm going to click on Make a Variable, and I'm going to call it Weather. Okay? So now you can see that 3 new blocks have been created for me. We've one that just says weather, we have set weather to 0, and we have changed weather by 1. Okay, so right now our code doesn't know what that means. That to our code is just a bunch of letters put together. It doesn't know what weather means. So we need to tell it what to do when that weather block comes up. So I'm going to set my weather to something. Okay, so now I said that I want it to be like in real life, where we don't know what's going to come up. We want it to be random. Niamh, do you think there's a block that we could slot in there that would make it random?
Well, if we wanted to pick the weather randomly and we've 3 different options for our weather, maybe if we check the math section, there might be a pick random block.
Okay, brilliant. So you're thinking of using numbers to do this. So that means going to the math section. Okay, and perfect. So we see a block there that says pick random between 0 and 10. Okay, so let's see if we can slot that in there. Okay, so now we're saying that weather means that it's going to choose a random number between, we have 1, 2, 3. So 3 options. So between 1 and 3. Okay, I want you to pause the webinar now and get caught up. So what we just did is we went in and we created a new variable because we wanted to have something that would change. So we made a new variable and we called it weather. And then all of these blocks appeared here. So we had to tell our program what to do when that happened. And we have now told our program to choose a random number between 1 and 3. Okay, so it looks good so far. Well, right now, if I put in that chat command weather, all that's going to happen is it's going to choose a random number and then nothing. So we need to tell it that if it chooses 1, then it will rain. And if it chooses 2, then it will be thunder. And if it chooses 3, then it'll be clear or sunny. Okay? So Niamh, where do you think we could find a block that would be like that?
Well, if we check in the logic section, we might see something that might be able to give us the option to choose between the 3 options.
Okay, really good point. So now we're introducing another coding concept called conditionals. And these are if-then statements. So it means if you're hungry, you eat a sandwich. If you're thirsty, you can have a drink. Or if you are cold, you put on a jumper. If not, you don't. Okay, Niamh, can you think of any other examples like that?
If it is raining, bring an umbrella, else don't bring an umbrella. Or what else? If it is Easter, eat lots of Easter eggs, else don't eat Easter eggs.
Brilliant one, Niamh. Okay, so let's bring out one of those blocks and put it in here. Okay, so now that block says, if true, then. So that doesn't make sense to me. We want to tell our code that if weather chooses 1, then it does something. So Niamh, where do you think we could find a block like that?
Well, we created weather as a variable. So we set our variable weather to pick randomly between the 3 different options. So maybe if we check our variable, there might be Or actually, no, if we check our logic.
Okay, well, let's have a look in both, okay? So we see in our variable section, we have a little spherical one here, or cylinder one with rounded sides. Then we have set and change. So we might be able to use one of those later, but let's go
Okay.
into logic like you said. You then said logic. Okay, and we can see we have comparison blocks. So how about we use this equals to?
That looks good. And it looks like it's the same shape, so it looks like it will fit in.
Exactly, perfect. So you were a step ahead there. You even found out where we would find the weather block. So now we can tell our code that if weather equals 1, then it's clear. Okay, so brilliant job. So I want you to pause now and try and work out how can we finish out this code? How can we get our weather to know what to do on 2 and 3 as well? And then once you've figured that out, come back to us and we'll work it out now. Okay, so I can see here there's an option for another one, but we want 3 options, don't we? So how about we click on this plus? Perfect. Okay, so now we've 3 options. So if weather equals or chooses 1, then make the weather clear. Else, if it, okay, so we need this block again. I'm going to right click on it, duplicate, and pop it in there. And now we're saying if 2, okay, and let's add in our weather blocks. Okay, so we've added in 1, and then we've added in another. Okay, so we have weather clear on 1, on 2, we can make it rain, and then the last one can be thunder. But something looks a little bit off about that, doesn't it, Niamh?
Yeah, we have if weather is equal to 1, so we have our comparison there. And then we have else if weather is equal to 2. But our third option just says else. So it doesn't have the comparison there. Why is that?
Okay, so actually that's a really good question. And it's because we have told our weather that there are only 3 options that it can choose from. It can only choose 1, 2, or 3, nothing else. So we have told it what to do if it chooses 1. We've told it what to do if it chooses 2. And there's only one more option. So that has to be if it chooses 3. Okay, so that seems like it's going to work. Let's very quickly go back over that code because we have done a lot of coding in this section here. Okay, so the first thing we did was we created a variable. We made our own variable and we called it weather. Then we told our code what to do when that block comes up. And we told it to choose a random number between 1 and 3. Then we said that we needed to tell it exactly what to do when it chooses 1. And we mentioned logic and brought in a conditional block. We brought them out and we told our code that if weather chooses 1, then it's clear. Else, if it chooses 2, then it rains. And then if it chooses the other one, it'll be thunder and lightning. Okay, so let's test out our code. Okay, so I'm going to do T to talk and type in weather and see if anything happens. Okay, so I can't see it happening there, but that's actually okay because what could have happened is my code chose number 1 and then it stayed clear because it's choosing a random number. Okay, we're going to give it one more try. So we're going to do T to talk. It could choose 1 again. And we're going to type in weather. Okay, so it chose a different one. Let's see if it's thunder or rain. I think it's going to be thunder. There we go. So we got some thunder. Okay, we'll do one more time then to see if we're lucky enough to get the third one. And the clouds are going away. Perfect. And it's raining. So that'd be the raining option. So you're after getting through so much code there. You should feel so proud of yourselves. before I pass you back on over to Niamh, I'm just going to very quickly show you the storybook, okay? So if you created your storybook along with us, you would have gotten your book and quill, brought it out, typed out all of your story, signed it, and created your book, okay? And when you hit sign and close, that means that nobody else can edit that book. It is your book. You've written it. It says your name on it. Nobody else can edit it. You can then right-click and export your book. What that means is that you can download that book onto your computer and do all of the cool things that Niamh's going to talk about now in the Home Challenge. Niamh, can you take over and talk a little bit about what we learned today and then explain the really cool code challenge?
I can indeed. Okay, well done everyone. You covered so many coding concepts today and over the course of the 3 webinars, so you should be super proud of yourselves. So I'm just going to go down quickly through what we learned today. So like last week, we built on our knowledge of the 3D coordinates. So the Minecraft map is divided into X, Y, and Z coordinates. And each of the X, Y, and Z coordinate values are used to indicate a type of position on the map, okay? We also learned what a variable is. So we created our own variable today called weather. And a variable is something that can change or that can vary. So we had 3 different types of weather today that the variable could change between. Okay, the next thing we learned today was a conditional. So we used the block if, then, else. And we used that block in order to change between the 3 different variables. So for example, if it rains, bring an umbrella, else don't bring an umbrella, because you don't need an umbrella if it's not raining. And the very last thing that we covered today was comparisons. So comparisons are where we can compare 2 things in coding. We used our comparison block to compare the weather. If it was equal to 1, what weather would it display? And if it was equal to 2, what weather it would display. So well done, everyone. Okay, so now I'm really excited to show you your home challenges, because our home challenges are really, really super cool this week. Okay, so our very first home challenge is to recreate your favorite storybook and combine the code and the building together. So as I said, when I was a child, one of my favorite stories was The 3 Little Pigs. So if I had a choice, I'd probably pick it if I were recreating my favorite story from when I was a child. But you choose your favorite story and make it personal to you. And we want you to print out screenshots and create a real life storybook. And just as Kaylin demonstrated there using the Minecraft storybook, you could use that either and export that. That'd be a super cool way of doing it. Okay, so that's our first home challenge. Our second home challenge is another cool one. So you have to build a city that you would like to live in or that you would like to travel to when you get a bit older. Okay, so in order to do that, we want you to research online the city that you've chosen and use the code to build it. So you need to use the code to build what it looks like. So use your research in order to design what the city looks like. Okay, so there are your 2 home challenges. For any educators or teachers watching in today, we also have more information about Minecraft Education Edition on our Wakelet, which can be found at the link on screen now. So if you just want to take down that link, you can get more information and find out lots more about Minecraft Education Edition. Okay, so we have a couple of different questions in the Q&A section that came up a couple of times. The first one I'm going to direct at Kaylin. Kaylin, can we use variables to do things other than weather? Could we use them in Minecraft to do other things?
That's a really good question. You can actually use the variables to do whatever you want. All you have to do is just give a different action. So if you use the code that we did today, instead of putting in where we said weather, if you wanted to put in pig, and then when it chooses 1, it spawns a pig. When it chooses 2, it spawns a wolf. When it chooses 3, it spawns a cow. So you're able to do whatever you'd like with the variables and the logic there.
Very good. And I see we have another question related to something similar. Can you give your variable more than 3 options? If you can use it for something else, which you have confirmed we can it have more than 3 options?
That's also a really good question. And yes, you can do as many as you want. All you have to do is just make sure to change the number one there. So remember, we said choose random number between 1 and 3. You'd have to change it between 1 and 10 if you wanted 10 options. And then just keep adding that plus arrow to your logic block, and you can add in as much as you like.
Okay, excellent. And one final question, Kaylin, and I think this is important to mention, is this Minecraft Education Edition series finished today, or is there another webinar next Friday?
Okay, so also a really good question. And actually today is our final episode, and that was why we got so much coding in today. So next week at this time, we'll be doing a maker and STEM session. Okay, so there will still be a webinar next week. It just won't be the Minecraft series, but we have some really cool things planned for next week. So do continue to tune in as well.
Exactly. We want to see you back for our STEM maker challenges and webinars.
Okay, so I just wanted to say a big thank you all for following us along this Minecraft journey. You should all be so proud of yourselves for getting through the code, especially today. We got through a lot of it, and if you want to go back and watch it again, that's okay. Go and watch it back when it's uploaded, and you'll be able to just keep practicing out that code. You should feel so proud of yourselves, and we're proud of you as well. So make sure to tune on next week for our maker sessions and our STEAM sessions. And you can also go into that code builder in Minecraft and try out some of the other projects and challenges that are in there. So we'll see you next week, and thank you so much, everyone.
Slán.